Hello, you have seen the beginning two photos. There you might have observed the aggregate particles are being separated from the cement mortar, or cement mortar is moved away from the aggregates. What do you think of it? This is nothing but segregation, where the concrete constituents are get separated from the homogeneous mix. This is called segregate or segregation of the concrete. The photos are representing the segregated concrete mix. Then let us see what is segregation. As I said, the segregation is separation of the particles of the concrete or the materials of the concrete from the homogeneous mix. That is called segregation. That means you might have observed in the general English, segregation is nothing but getting separated. That is called as segregation. And what is the reason for these things? What do you think of it? Segregation will happen in the concrete generally because of higher water cement ratio. When the water content is increased, that may causes the segregation. Or if you made the concrete to be fall from height more than 1 meter and it is falling freely on the surface, that will lead to the segregation. Or if you are taking the concrete in the slope, the sliding will happens with respect to the aggregates in the speedy manner, but not with the mortar. That is the reason for segregation. Or you are taking the concrete in the chute. Generally you might have seen in the transit mixtures where it is supplying the concrete for the footing. There they might have having the gutter shape or the U-shape pipe, or it might be a off pipe is being placed. That is called as chute. If the concrete is flowing in the chute, that will causes the segregation. Also, if you are doing the over vibration, that will also causes the segregation. Then sir, you are telling over vibration will causes the segregation. Then how much I had to vibrate, or I had to give the compaction from the vibration? That is being measured in the workability measurement. You might have observed in the VB consistometer test. There the vibration is given for a particular time, that is considered as VB second. There it is being measured. That much the vibration is to be given. And next is what is the effect of segregation? If segregation happens in the concrete, what will the things will affect to the concrete? First thing, your mortar is being separated from the aggregates. So what will happens? The aggregates will make a one form, and the cement mortar will make another form. After hardening, those empty pockets of the aggregates will become weak, and the concrete which is having the mortar mix which is hardened will be having the plastic shrinkage, and it might be having the cracks. So it is forming a weak section, one thing. And next is it is not going to form the homogeneous mix at all because it is being separated. Next thing is the packets of the aggregates or the streaks of the mortar will give the weak section. Upon loading it will cracks and then it will fails. These are the things will happen with respect to the segregated concrete if it is hardened as it is. And moreover, it will be difficult for the people who are having or working with the segregated concrete to compact. It won't compact properly. That is also the problem. And let us see what are all the remedial measures we can take for it. First and foremost thing is the proportioning. We have to take the proper proportioning of the materials, and as per the design proportion only we have to take the materials. Either it might be a wave batching or it might be the volume batching. You will learn what is wave batching and volume batching in the next videos. That means we have to take the proper proportion as it is given by the design mix. And next is concrete should not be more rich or it should not be more lean. It should be in the optimum dosage or in the optimum content. That has to be taken. And next is we don't have to increase much more water cement ratio for the workability, because we have seen in the site workers when the laborers are working with the concrete, if they found it's difficult to do work with the concrete having the optimum water cement ratio, they will straightly they will go for the increase of the water content just by pouring the water. That will right now it will become worky or workable one while placing, but later it will give the effect. You know what is the effect of water cement ratio is increased in the water content. That is the workability will increase, but it will affect to the strength. That is also a problem. We have to control it. And next is the proper vibration is to be given. We don't have to do the over vibration, we don't have to give the less vibration. We have to give the proper vibration or compaction to be adopted at the site. Next is one more thing about the handling of the concrete. Handling of the concrete before placing and finishing, we have to handle it properly. That means it should not be fallen from the free fall height, not more than 1 meter. It should be less than that. We have to take care of it. And when it is coming from the chute, we have to remix it and then we have to place it. That has to be taken. And next is while handling also or while carrying also, we have to avoid it for its segregation. Those are the things has to be taken as the measures. Then, sir, how to measure this segregation? There is no particular test for measuring the segregation. Segregation will be measured just by seeing the concrete. If the concrete is being separated or a separated mass of aggregates and then matrix of mortar, then we will say it as segregated. That is the thing we can see in the site or while working with the concrete.
Segregation is defined as the separation of the constituent materials of concrete from each other. In a good concrete, all concrete ingredients are evenly distributed to form a homogeneous mass. Generally, the coarse aggregate gets separated from the other mixture. The segregation of concrete induces all undesirable properties in the hardened concrete. As the ingredients of concrete vary in sizes and specific gravities, it tends to fall apart. In general, segregation occurs in any of the three types. Firstly, the coarse aggregate separating out from the paste. Secondly, the paste separating away from coarse aggregate. And thirdly, water separating out from the mix. Besides, improper mixing of concrete with excess water results in a high tendency of segregation. The improper placing of concrete also results in segregation. Using vibrators on the two wet mixes will result in segregation. Thus, it can be said that tendency for segregation of concrete can be reduced by correctly proportioning the mix, by proper handling, transporting, placing, compacting and finishing. If segregation is observed at any stage, remixing for a short time would make the concrete again homogeneous.
Now you have seen the two photos which all are representing or you might have observed where water which is having cement content is at the higher level and it is finished with some watery water content is more at the higher level, or you might have seen it is finished very well with the water you are looking at. It seems to be like that. Those photos are representing the bleeding of the concrete where water is coming up above the aggregates or the cement matrix, but while coming up it will carry the cement content which were used in the concrete. Generally you can see these things only when water cement ratio is very high and you have given more compaction, or in the general you might have seen in the flooring, flooring concrete has been done. After flooring concrete you might have seen the concrete which is finished. After that you will see water and cement will be at the top layer. That should not happen because it will lead to some other effects of plastic shrinkage. Okay, that will lead to the cracks. Whatever the water is being stored at the which is coming up at the surface of the concrete, which is called as latents. That is water with the cement which is coming up is called as latents. Okay, remember this word latents. You will hear it in other things, like when you are coming to the competitive exams, they will ask what is latents, where it will occurs, likewise. Okay, it will come in bleeding. Okay, and next is when you can see this bleeding, because when you are proportioned improperly, that means your proportion is either it is imbalanced, or you have given the more water content, or when you are giving the over vibration, or when you are taking the careless mixing, that means insufficient mixing. Those are all the things are causing to the bleeding. Let us see what are all the effects of this bleeding. if the bleeding is being happened with the concrete and then it's being set forth as it is, what else the things will happen? One thing, it will causes the plastic shrinkage cracks at the top, because cement is subjected to more heat of hydration, so water will be evaporated rapidly and that will lead to the cracks, that is called shrinkage cracks. Those are the things occurs in the beginning, so it is called as plastic shrinkage cracks. Okay, one thing, the plastic shrinkage cracks will occur. And next is the water whichever is being having the cement is coming up. While coming up, it will causes the pores, that will causes the permeability, that is increase in the permeability of the concrete. It will be an ill effect if you are using it for the slabs. It will be a good effect if you are using the concrete for the floor, that is in the gardening cases, all those things, because whatever the water is there, it is being giving the permeability and then it is being sucked by the concrete, so it is not giving any problem, but it is reducing the strength also, that is also an ill effect. And next, also it is taking the cement content, so it is reducing the binding agent, so it is also going to reduce the bonding between the aggregate as well as cement mortar, so it is reducing the strength. And next is if you are giving the bleeding if the bleeding is being happened with the concrete, that is also giving the effect to the spalling. That means spalling is nothing but your concrete cover is being getting fallen after rusting of the rod. You might have seen in the old buildings where the concrete is being fallen from the slabs and you can see the rods which are being rusted. That will happens because of this bleeding. If the bleeding is occurred in the placing of the concrete, later the accumulation of the water will leads to the corrosion of the iron rods or steel rods, and then it is going to lose the bond between the rod as well as the concrete, and then it is going to cause us the failure. These are all the effects of. Then what are all the remedial measures we can take for this segregation? The first thing is you have to use the concrete with the proper proportion. It should be mixed properly and then it should be taken with the rich concrete. So it is a measure. And other than this, we can use the pozzolanic material to absorb the extra water, or we can go for the some finer cement which are having the low alkali content. Those are all the things we can take. And again, we don't have to do the much more or over vibration for the concrete. These are the things we can take. And then sir, how to measure this bleeding? What are all the things we can have, or the test we can have? No, till now we don't have any test for measuring the bleeding. How much water content will use the how much bleeding, still we didn't research it. So you can do it if you have interested, but till now we don't have the specified test for measuring the bleeding. Just we can have the just visual observation. If the cement with the water is coming up on the layer, that is going to be a bleeding. So from that we are taking the we can have the idea. It may give us some ill effects in the later. Then how to avoid it? The avoiding of the concrete, that is bleeded concrete, is only by taking the remedial measures.
Bleeding of fresh concrete is the inherent property which denotes an occurrence of engulfing out of water from the concrete to the surface of the concrete. This is generally observed in a highly wet mix, badly proportioned and insufficiently mixed concrete. It is also observed in thin members like roof slab or road slabs and sunny weather conditions. Sometimes, along with water, certain quantity of cement also comes to the surface. During finishing with the trowel and floats, the aggregate goes down and the cement paste come up to the top surface. This results in the formation of lay items. The bleeding of concrete will result in the loss of wearing quality of the surface. This also develops higher shrinkage cracks on the surface. Bleeding rate increases with time up to an hour after concreting, and thereafter the rate decreases till the setting time of cement. Bleeding of concrete can be reduced by proper proportioning, uniformity of concrete and complete mixing of concrete. In general, Rich mixes are less susceptible to bleeding than lean mixes. Besides, the bleeding of concrete is not completely harmful if the rate of evaporation of water is equal to the rate of bleeding of concrete.